If you do this, you will never get objections in your marketing. And respectfully, BS. Objections are not a bad thing. They're not about your offer. They're not about this person objecting working with me. They're not about this person objecting my price. Objections are not about you. People want to feel like you empower them. People want to feel like you support them. People want to feel like you care about them. Listen to me. Doing sales in a heart-centered way does not mean that the sales are not going to close. We're not talking pressure. We're not talking about taking away agency or independence. We're talking about being there and sitting in it with them to see how you can support. Hello and welcome back to Ambitious. Today, we are talking all things objections. And in going into today, I want to have you think of this in two ways. And this could be very much, number one, a guide for you on what to say to those people in your world who seem to have resistances to investing with you, to moving in the next step of maybe investing in your service, investing in your coaching, investing into your offer. But this also might hit for you on a different level, which is to think about maybe reframing how you're thinking about taking that next step. So maybe you're thinking about investing in your health. Maybe you're thinking about investing into your business. Maybe you're thinking about hiring a team member. And you yourself have resistances. You yourself have objections. This might also be an invitation to say, is there a different way that I could be looking at thinking about taking that next step in something in my life that I want to spend on, in something in my business that I want to spend on? And so today, what I'm going to do is I am going to go through the top quote unquote objections or resistances that many of us, including myself, experience when it comes to taking a next step in spending money. And I'm also going to give you some opportunities on how, if someone comes to you with this objection, how can we reframe this for them? And what are ways that we can help to present a different belief around what fear is actually coming up in that moment? The other reason I wanted to talk about objections today is because I think it's important for us to acknowledge objections are not a bad thing. I've seen a lot of marketing online where people talk about the fact of like, I don't get objections. And if you do this, you will never get objections in your marketing. And respectfully, BS, because objections are the normal resistance that all of us have in our nervous system, in our brain, in our mindset when we are on the brink of change. Think about this in the context of something different. If I put you on the edge of a cliff and I said, we're going to base jump for the first time, if you didn't have resistance, I'd be curious as to why that was. And that's because it's normal. When we take a big leap on something, investing in a team member, hiring your first personal trainer, maybe, it could be an investment on buying a home. There's a natural feeling that comes up in a lot of us. Sometimes it's excitement. Sometimes that kind of excitement or that butterfly feeling feels a little bit more like anxiety. Sometimes it's paralyzing fear. I want to also normalize that when we take big leaps in our business, in our life, it is normal. It is understandable that you will have resistance. And this is why it's also important for us to understand how to unpack this with people. Because the belief that objections mean something's wrong, or if you're from the camp of, well, I don't overcome objections, what you're really saying by saying I don't overcome objections or that I don't deal with objections is that you're actually saying, I don't care to validate somebody else's fears around taking a big leap in their life or business. That's what that tells me. If you don't overcome objections, it means that you don't actually want to sit with someone in the natural emotion that they're having in taking a big step within their life or business. So, what we're going to do today is we're going to break down all the common objections, and I'm going to help you to think about ways to reframe these. So, if I was going to teach you this at a very, very high level, the understanding of objections is first acknowledging that they're normal. Second, when someone explains an objection to you or shares an objection with you, it's really important that you also validate the feeling, not the phrase. Okay? We are validating the feeling, not the phrase. So let's just take a different example. If I said to you right now, I feel like a failure, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that if you say, yeah, I agree, I totally appreciate you being a failure. You could say, I can appreciate the feeling that's coming up for you for sure. The thing we want to acknowledge is the feeling that someone shares with us, not necessarily the phrase in which they share it. Okay. So, for example, if someone shares to you that they feel right now is not the right time, maybe to invest, or they feel like maybe they need to wait, we want to acknowledge the feeling, which is, I do feel anxious about whether right now is the right time. We don't necessarily want to say, yeah, you're totally right about, like, I totally get you wanting to wait. That is saying, I completely agree with all of what you're fearing right now. Instead, what we want to do is we want to make sure that people feel validated in the things that are coming up for them. Because again, it is normal, it is common. Imagine going to your therapist and sharing something that felt so real and felt so raw and felt so honest for you, and her completely not acknowledging it or not addressing it in any way and just providing, here's what you should do instead. You want to be seen. All of us want to be seen and heard and understood. And so that's the first step anytime that someone is going to share this with you. So you need to, number one, make sure you understand objections are normal. It doesn't mean anything about you of like, I can't sell and this is not right, because people are not supposed to have objections. I have been doing sales. I was a closer for sales as a high ticket phone closer. And I also obviously do sales in my own business, in DMs, on the phone, in all different buckets. I still to this day experience objections all the time. And those people who experience objections are also now my clients or have been clients for several years after having an objection. So objections are normal. Two, we want to validate the feeling that is coming up for someone. And third, we need to get curious, because this is not about just taking what someone feels at face value. What we know, again, if we take it out of the context of sales, what we know is that when someone experiences fear, that doesn't necessarily mean that what it presents as is actually what it is. Right? So when someone shares, this is how I'm feeling, oftentimes when we really peel that onion, we're starting to uncover layers and layers and layers underneath it that never were mentioned, that were never presented initially in the discussion. The same thing is true when it comes to objections. We have to go in with getting curious. So the kind of high level is acknowledge that they're normal. Two, validate. And three, get curious. Now, here's the important thing. If you do not change your personal perspective or relationship when it comes to objections or when it comes to resistances in a sales process, that is going to change the way that you handle these situations, not if, but when they come up. And so it's really important that your perspective is ready and primed to be able to sit in that with somebody who shares it. Because the other thing that I have seen and that I have absolutely heard from people that they've shared it with me is that they've been talking to somebody and they've shared with someone that they were nervous to invest, or they shared with somebody that they felt like they wanted to do it, but they were kind of, curious about XYZ or had some reservations. And the person said, yeah, let me know when you're ready. Like, let me know if you have any questions. It felt like they got shrugged off. It felt like the person was not interested in having that conversation with them. And so ultimately, that person didn't invest with them. And this same person came to me and said, to be honest, Kate, I really want to work with you. But the investment and the thing that she was investing into was basically the investment of like a small car. Like it was not a small purchase by any means. It was a big investment. And she said, I'm really nervous and I'm feeling, like I really want to do this, but I'm also kind of like wondering, is this the right time? Like, do you feel like anyone else who's done this has had nerves? And I said, yeah, 90% of the people who have gone to this offer had jitters, 1,000%. Like the feeling that you're having is normal. And because I sat in it with her and I acknowledged what was coming up for her and I shared my own experiences and I provided a reframe, which we're going to talk about today, it allowed her to shift and say, you know what? Yes, let's do it. That client eventually became a client of 3 years inside my coaching. So I am a big, big advocate for overcoming objections, but I'm also very conscious of the fact of how it's being done. One of the things that I've focused on in the way that I teach sales is that I teach sales from a heart-centered place. Now, I know when I say that, most people will say like, "Oh, that's kind of, foofy. I want to make sure that it closes." Listen to me. Doing sales in a heart-centered way does not mean that the sales are not going to close. It means that when the sales close, you're not pressuring anybody, you're not manipulating anybody, you're giving the person agency, and you're helping and supporting them along the way. My sales approach is heavily influenced by my time and understanding of social work, actually, because it was helping people to get to their own aha moment versus forcing an aha moment because I want it to happen on my timeline. So, that is the basis of what we're going to be diving into today. So let's start with the number one thing that, especially as someone who sells high ticket myself, I hear a lot, and I know many of my clients here, is they get frustrated because they feel like they get on calls with people, and maybe you're experiencing this as well. You're getting on calls with people and they're saying it's too expensive or it's just too pricey or the price tag. It's more expensive than I had been anticipating. And what I want to look at is, again, validating. So I want to, again, like that client, acknowledge that, yes, you're right. You're not wrong. This is a big investment. This is an investment into your business. This is an investment into, us as an agency. This is an investment. The other thing that I also want to ask, or that I would inquire to somebody, is, okay, let's just look at, obviously we've got the investment. Let's look at the other side. What would you say to play the alternative? Let's just say we don't make this investment and you walk away today and I stay where I am and I move on with our day and we have this great call together and we never speak again. What do you feel would be the cost of staying where you are today? Right? And so we want to try to get that person tuned into asking, there's a cost to moving, but let's also look at the cost to not moving. And, I think about this for myself. One of the things that I had the most objections with, because I find I invest very easily within my business, but I struggle to invest personally into things. So like if I invest, like I've invested with my eyes closed, $30,000, $40,000 into the business. Ask me to spend $300 a month on my health because I find that I operate differently as a buyer in my personal life than I do my business. I often am the person who has objections. And I'm like, okay, well, should I invest in that extra $300 for this program, whatever it might be? And when I had even someone present this to me and they said, okay, well, let's just say you don't invest in this, $600 a month program for my health. What would that look like? How long have you been trying to hit this goal for your health? How long have you been working at, for example, hitting this strength goal or hitting this overall health goal? What is the cost of staying where you are? And I just sat in that. They didn't say that I had to move right then. They didn't push me. It was just a reflection to ask myself that critical question of, what does it mean if I don't invest right now? What would it mean? What would the cost be to stay where I am right now? And the other question could also be, is this a cost to you, or do you see this as an investment? And so the reason we want to start to unpack that is, let's think about other situations. This is what I would share with someone if they said, I'm really scared to invest. And I'd say, okay, well, why are you scared to invest? Because it's a really big investment. Okay, so it's very expensive. I understand that. If you're thinking about investing, though, let's take this out of the context. And you're going to see me do this a couple times today, because one thing I also think many people don't do is they don't pull parallels from other parts of our life. Oftentimes, we are always explaining in the context of what we're selling. But there's also a lot of principles that we can learn, that we can see ourselves within by pulling parallels from other parts of our life. For example, let's look at how much we spend on going to college or going to university, right? So on average, you're going to spend, I'm obviously in the Toronto area of Canada, but I would probably say on average, you're looking at about $10, $12, $15,000 a year with books and all the things to go to university. So let's just say over a 4-year undergrad, that's $40,000. You're going in and you're spending minimum $40,000 on tuition with the belief that when you come out, you will look to get a decent, high-paying job as a result of having your degree. So we're willing to invest $40,000 over 4 years in the hope that we get the position, not the guarantee, the hope that we get the position. We, for example, in paid advertising, if you are somebody who does paid ads in your business, we know that in paid ads, you have to spend money to make money. So we know that the impact of how much you generate with ads is always typically correlated in some capacity to how much you're spending. We also know, let's just say with the stock market, if you're somebody who wants to make money in the stock market, what does it mean that you need to do? It means you need to put money into the stock market. The more you've got in, the more upside that there can be to you winning and having a preferable outcome in the stock market. So we see in many different instances within our lives that there are many opportunities in many places where we are putting money out in the belief, in the hope, and the anticipation of winning. So the curiosity that I would have for that person who says that this is an investment and this is a lot of money to put out, and so many people, right, want this guarantee of success. We are so willing to flex this muscle in so many other areas. But the question is, why are we not willing to flex that muscle in this area? And what I have found when I start to unpack this with people is that when they put money into the stock market and it doesn't win, they blame the stock market. When they put money into ads and it doesn't win, they blame Meta or they blame, Facebook or whatever it might be. If someone puts money into their undergrad and they don't get a career that they're looking for the compensation they want, they blame the job market. They blame anything other than themselves. There's also a very presencing experience when we invest and we don't have something come of it, that the only person to blame is ourselves. So there's many ways to look at this, of the idea of this is a big investment or this is very expensive. You can look at the fact of, yes, there's the cost of the actual thing itself that you're spending on, but what's the cost of staying the same? So, for example, if there's a fear of buying a new car because it's a big purchase, okay, well, let's look at the other side. If you keep your car right now that's old, how much maintenance do you think that that's potentially going to cost you in the next year? Is it possible that the maintenance that could cost you might actually be the equivalent of your car payments this year for a new car that you would have guaranteed success, that you can get to and from work each day, right? So this is not just in the context of online business. It can be pulled from all different analogies and examples. And I want to invite you in sales to do that with people, to invite them into picturing different situations. The reason that you want to do this from more of a psychology perspective is it removes the emotion from what they're about to do, which is invest. They're starting to experience and play with the idea of taking that step in neutral examples, not just in the example in front of them, which is them processing their credit card today. So it allows them space to feel and play out the hypothetical of taking that action without necessarily having to do it immediately right now in front of you. So when we think about it's too expensive, what I help people to do is understand the cost of the move versus the cost of not moving. And I also help to explain and ask questions and unravel where are other areas in their life where they also have invested money in the belief that down the line it will help them to win. And the curiosity is, if they are the kind of person who has flexed that muscle before, they've bought a house with the hope of equity, they've invested into school with the hope of making the money back in their career. If you've already flexed that muscle, what is the difference between flexing that muscle here today? And that would be something that I would, again, be curious to know as to what really is the disconnect. So there's many ways to unpack the expensive aspect, but I also really think that an important thing too that I've also asked people is, I've said to people when they say, well, this is very expensive. And I would say, okay, well, out of curiosity, in comparison to what? So if you say to me, let's just say coaching is very expensive, which I've heard many times, by the way. If someone says my coaching is very expensive, number one, I validate. I say 100% you're right. It is an investment. So I can appreciate the feeling of it feeling like a big step. But also when you say it's expensive, for example, in comparison to what? And they say, well, like I was thinking about this course or I was thinking about XYZ. And then what I help them to understand is that means that when you say, I'm going to compare it to, let's just say, a group coaching program that's available, they're comparing a limousine private luxury experience to the equivalent of a Honda. So what I then help them to understand is the discrepancy between the two things that they're comparing it to. So then I again validate. I say 100%. If the Honda experience is the kind of thing that you're looking for, then I 1,000% agree you should go with the Honda. Because that is that experience, and that experience is fairly priced for that type of experience. But the difference is that that's not really what we're investing into here. So what I help people to also recognize is that the thing that you're investing into is not a Honda. So if a Honda is what you feel like you need, then I fully support you in going and getting your Honda. And I go, also, by the way, nothing wrong with the Honda. I'm just giving this for analogy purposes. So if you feel like you need a Honda, go get your Honda. But also, if you are someone who's here to experience the luxury experience of having a Porsche, or the luxury experience of driving a Lamborghini, or the valet experience of having somebody who goes and really has this custom experience for you, if that's what you're here to buy, it's a very different thing than buying a Honda. And so I also help people to understand, are we really comparing apples to apples if I feel, for whatever reason, that they're comparing my price to something else that they've seen. So this is also something you'll see a lot for people who are price shopping, okay? So the second thing that we always hear, right, is I need to think about it. So like, all of this sounds great. I love this. I really feel like I need to think about it. And one of the things that and again, this is my personal perspective, I don't believe in pushing people. One of the things that we know from the different types of buyers that there are people who are analytical buyers. And they are the kind of people that if you push them, if you overdo it, if you tell them like, no, you got to move right now, and like, this is the moment and that's it, you will lose them because you are pressuring them into moving into an investment when the time is actually something that supports them and helps them to understand that they're ready to take that next step. So one of the things that I often ask people when they say that I want to think about it, I typically, will validate the emotion of what's coming up for them. But I'm also curious as to, when you say you want to think about it, what kind of things are coming up for you right now? So is there anything specifically that I potentially here today could help you with that you want to think through? So maybe there's questions. Maybe they want to know what kind of support they get, or they want to kind of sit with, maybe they're thinking, should I hire a consultant or should I hire someone to do done for you? Often when someone needs to go think about it, there's two reasons why that is. They want to go think about it because they kind of have internal questions that they need to get answered, or they want to think about it strictly out of the place of fear. And so the first bucket I want to solve for is, do they have questions, curiosities, or concerns that I can help to support them with in the time that they would want to think about it? And I've asked that question. I said, I totally respect, obviously, if you want to take time to think about it. I so get that. I myself have had times where I feel like I need to step away and think about it, just to obviously make sure that I can support you in any way possible. When you say you want to think about it, what kind of things are coming up for you, maybe as, questions or things you want to sit with? And so they'll say, well, the thing that I'm struggling with is I had someone, for example, who is, by the way, an existing client. And she came to me and she said exactly this. She said, I want to think about it. I asked her this question and she said, well, right now I'm trying to decide whether to hire, truthfully, you or whether to hire a marketing agency. And I just don't know what to do because I feel like I need someone to do my socials. I don't have time, but I also feel like I don't understand other parts of my business strategy. And I kind of feel like I need both. And so I said, okay, great. Let's dive into that. I said, when you want to hire the marketing agency, what's the goal there? And so we started to unpack it. And I said to her, great, what do you want me to help you? Let's actually figure out, is this a matter of me or them? Or is there actually potentially, from the financial aspect of your business, an opportunity for you to invest in both? And so that's what she did. She hired the marketing agency and she hired me in addition to them at the same time, because I helped to educate her and support her in understanding the fact that she actually financially could definitely afford both. And I also advised her that I didn't think it was smart to outsource, most specifically, marketing strategy if she herself didn't understand it. Fast forward, she said, nope, I want to move forward with the agency. It feels like I really need the done for you support. I said, no problem. Fast forward a couple months into coaching, she had then let go of the marketing agency because she said that she had basically handed over the keys to her marketing and they took the marketing in a wrong direction, meaning that they actually reduced the impact, the efficiency, the results of her marketing because they took over. And so she thankfully was inside of our coaching, inside of Accelerator, and we supported and kind of helped through, okay, great, like let's unpack this for you. And fast forward, she's now getting better results doing her own marketing than this person got by managing and entirely handing over the marketing to them. So what I did is I supported her in her question, in her desire, and I sat in that with her. And I said, okay, great, like let's unpack that. Let's get educated. Let's kind of see what would make most sense here, what some different options are of what could be the next step. And I also didn't say, well, you don't need an agency, you need me. I said, here's different perspectives of how you could look at this. Do you feel like you understand your own marketing? Do you feel like you'd know how to coach them if they weren't getting the results that you wanted? I started to ask questions. This again is really important. We're not telling people in objections, we're asking. It is not, you're going to say, well, Kate, I know what they need to hear. I know, because so do I. But the difference is that this is not about you telling someone. Think about people in your life who keep telling you things versus the person who comes to you and asks you a question and says, well, how do you feel about that? What's coming up for you? What do you think you should do? You feel like you're coming to the aha moment and you feel in control versus someone taking away your control. That's also very important when it comes to objections. The other thing that I look at is maybe it's not logistical. Maybe there is a little bit more of an emotion based here of needing time for it, meaning that they just are the type of person who feels like they always take time because it's the only thing that makes them feel safe. And so what I ask is, if you're pausing, would you say that you are pausing because you're trying to kind of align yourself to this decision, or are you pausing from a place of what you feel is coming up right now, a fear? Right? So do you feel like you're pausing from a place of trying to figure out if this is aligned? Or are you pausing and taking a moment because you really are actually scared of this investment? And so if you are someone who's trying to figure out if this is truly aligned, then okay, like I'm not going to be the person who's like, no, you're not allowed to think about it. Are there going to be sales coaches who tell you that? 1,000%, because they believe that if you go think about it, you're never coming back. I don't personally agree with that perspective, because what I feel to be true and what I know to be true from evidence in my own business and others that I've coached is that people want to feel like you empower them. People want to feel like you support them. People want to feel like you care about them. So if I am like all about me, what am I going to do? I'm not going to allow you to think about it. I'm not going to allow you to go talk to your spouse. I'm not going to allow you to go have a second to run your numbers. I'm not going to allow you to have a moment to breathe. That's because I have scarcity and fear. The only reason that I would not allow that is because I would have scarcity and fear that if I let you off the phone, you're never going to come back. Of anybody that I have ever had in this approach that I'm talking about, go and think about it, I would say 98% of them have come back and have become long-term clients. And that is because we build the relationship off the fact that I am not getting you to invest because of only my personal desires, but I'm also getting you to invest because I believe it's truly what's right for you. And I'm going to allow you to have your own process in taking that step. So the thing that I also let people know is that there's a big difference when you need a pause in thinking about something versus when you've hit a stop sign. Okay. Even I had this investment that I made, and it was, I want to say at the time, around like $12,000 a month that I was signing on for an extended period of time. And I remember at the time, I was kind of like, that's, it's enough. It's enough. And at the time obviously I've invested more than that now, but at the time it felt stretchy. And I remember saying, hey, like, are you cool if I just think about it? And again, this person was very supportive and really like kind of coached me through it. And they said, do you feel like you just need to kind of like take a breath and think about it? Or, what's coming up for you? And I said, like, I just feel like I just want to take a breath for a second. I just need a pause to kind of like just tune in. And again, alignment. It's not that I fear it. Like, I know I need to do it. It's just, I just want to take a breath to sit with it for a second. So this is literally what we did, is we didn't let it stop the process. So at the time, this person said, listen, go take your pause. Let's circle back later today and take your moment, sit with it, think through it, and we'll circle back. And if anything comes up for you, we'll have kind of a connection later today where we can talk about it. I said, great. And that's what I did. I literally went to the backyard and I put my face in the sun and I thought about it and I was like, yes, I want to do this. And it was 3, 2, 1, go. And I ended up investing, the 12K a month kind of thing to move forward with this person. So it wasn't that I wasn't going to do it. It's not that I didn't want to take that step. It's the fact that I didn't want this person being like, well, you have to do it right now, because if you don't do it now, then you can't get in. It's the last spot, and all this BS that you and I both know is not real. It's all just urgency to make us move. And what do we feel when someone does that to us? We feel icky. And my whole thing is, I would never objection handle somebody else the way that I would not want someone to objection handle me. I will never sell someone the way that I would not want to be sold. If I had a daughter or a best friend or my sister being sold into something, do I feel that the way I'm selling this person would be consistent with the way I would want those people to be sold to? That's really how I think about like kind of the ecosystem of selling and my perspective on how I do it. So when someone shares the need to really think about it, I also look to say, do you feel like you need a pause, or do you feel like you need a full stop sign? Meaning you just need to completely take space and you're going to come back in 2 weeks. That's very different than saying, I really just feel like if I had an hour to just sit with this, let's circle back and, chat later today. Very different than saying, I'll take 2 weeks to think about this and message you eventually when I'm ready to move forward. The other objection that you probably have experienced is that someone has invested in something like what you offer before. They have invested, maybe for me, into business coaching. They've invested into an agency. They've invested into social media. You've invested into something before and they either got burned or they feel like they had a bad experience. And as a result, they're scared to do it again. And one of the easy analogies that I use for this is relationships. And so I say, listen, I can totally appreciate that. I myself as well, again, validate and be transparent. I myself have also had those situations. I have had very bad investments to the point where I've invested into websites, for example, thousands of dollars, and through a variety of events, never even received a website. I have invested into coaching that was just truly terrible. I've invested into a variety of things that did not work out in my favor, and I still invest today. And so I share with people this analogy and I say, curious, are you currently dating someone? Are you currently in a relationship? Or like, are you someone who's, looking, or have you had basically a partner in the past? So I'll say something along the lines of, do you have like a boyfriend, girlfriend at this time? They say, yeah, I do. Okay, great. And curious, before them, have you ever had any other, boyfriends or girlfriends in the past? And they say, yeah, I have. Okay. So if you think back on any of your partners that you've dated before, was there ever one of those that you feel like you look back and you're kind of not really excited about it? You think about how they treated you, you think about how it ended, you think about how you were supported, you think about maybe some situations that came up and they say, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay." So picture him or her in your mind. And I'm curious, what allowed you to be able to date again? Or if they're not dating, I would say curious. From that relationship, would you say that you feel confident that you'll never date again? And not a single person I've ever asked this to, number one, has said, like, oh, yeah, I've sworn off dating for the rest of my life. Or someone has said, well, I definitely was nervous when I met my current partner and this happened. But I, kind of got back out there and now I've met the love of my life, or now I'm really happy. And I'd say, well, how do you feel in your current relationship? I feel amazing. Okay. The same thing is true for the investment. You are going to have, as I have, as you have, as the woman next to you or the man next to you will have, we are all going to have the bad boyfriend. We're all going to have the person who was not great to us, the person who gave us a very bad taste in our mouth, experience wise, the person who, we have interacted with in some way and we didn't have a necessarily pleasurable experience. The difference is, though, we can't stop dating. We can't stop opening ourselves to love or opening ourselves to business or opening ourselves to the next step in our lives, in our businesses, whatever it might be, strictly based off of the fact that we had a bad boyfriend once. And so the question is, are you going to let the agency you invested with, the coach that you invested with, the bad boyfriend you had keep you from loving again? And that's only something that you can answer. That's not something for me to tell you. And if you are in the mindset, you're like, no, I am never dating again and I do not want to do it. And, I have another client, she's a marketing consultant, and she shared this with me. She had a awful, and I mean awful, awful, awful coaching experience. And she said she watched me for over a year and we got on a call because she had shared me in the DM. She was very nervous. And so I said, listen, I don't want to, message back and forth. Let's just get on a call and I will answer any and every question that you have. And I also want to get on a call with her because I recognize that, there is an aspect of seeing someone's emotion and seeing, someone's empathy and their genuine desire to help you that you can really only get when you're face to face with somebody. So I said, okay, great, let's get on a call. So we did. And she shares with me and she said, Kate, I literally have, and this is not an exaggeration, she's literally gone to see someone about this. She literally, from this experience and the way that she was treated, has PTSD from it, which is very serious. And so I was obviously extremely empathetic to that. And so I said to her, listen, okay, again, I explained to her the aspect of what I just shared with you, which is, we all have these bad relationships. The question is, do we want to love again? And she says, I do, but I think I very much am anxious to get into that quote unquote new relationship with my new coach, i.e. me. And so I said, okay, great. Well, my question would be, if you were going to quote unquote love again, if you were going to get into that relationship again, What would you feel you need to hear, see, or understand that would make you feel comfortable? And she said, well, I'd want to know from past clients that it wasn't just the results you got, but the experience. So I said, okay, great. Would it make you feel comfortable if today I connected you with, say, 2 or 3 of my current or past clients, whatever you prefer, and I connect you guys in the DMs and I'll let you guys chat privately. And I just say, hey, I'd love for you to share the experience you had of our coaching versus just, hey, I got you this much money. Because you and I both know everyone can market the results they get. Whether people have good experiences or whether they feel truly supported is a very different thing. So I said to her, would that make you feel supported? She said, yes. I said, okay, beautiful. So what we're going to do is I'm going to connect you with some of my past and current clients, and they're going to be able to share with you the 101 of their experience. And what we'll do is you and I will connect, later tomorrow. And I would love to connect and answer any follow-up questions that you might have or anything that comes up as a result of that. And we'll touch base tomorrow. How's that sound? She said, great. That client has now been a client inside of our mastermind ever since that day. And she has since written posts on social media about how she swore off that she hated business coaches and she did not want to invest again, and how much this experience has changed her perspective. And the reason I share that is because so many of us, again, perspective wise, we need to change our relationship with objection handling. If I hadn't done that, she might have never gotten coaching or consulting ever again in her business. She might have stayed stuck for a very long time in her business by, as a result, not getting coaching. And so she would have stayed stuck in this cycle of, again, no more boyfriends or girlfriends, no more love, no more support. So me, quote unquote, challenging her or inviting her to a different perspective or reframe was not about her being in my offer. It was about the fact that I said to her on the call, whether it is me or someone else, you need to know that you can love again. You can be supported. You can have somebody who can coach and consult you from a place of care and consideration. That is possible for you. That is out there for you. And so this was not about me and my offer. It was about getting her the help that she needed. And again, that person is a client today. So it really is, I find, again, you'll see here another theme, pulling an analogy from a situation that is different or outside of the situation that is currently at hand for them. Okay, so I want to take a quick little brief interruption from today's episode to let you know about something really exciting. And I want to first preface, there is nothing here that I have to sell you. This is about something that is entirely free that I think would be a massive support for you if you are someone who's loving all things Ambitious Podcast. So we have created an absolutely incredible community that is called the Ambitious Network. This is really a place where coaching and masterminds meet high-level networking of other women who are just like you. So a little bit of what you can anticipate. This is a place for you to grow, to connect, and ultimately to get the support that you need to elevate your business. And so some of the things you can anticipate inside. Number one, live hot seat coaching. This is literally live coaching in the way that I would do inside of our masterminds and our different offers, only inside of this community, entirely free. You'll also get the opportunity to get access to exclusive giveaways that are not available anywhere else. So these are things like giveaways of different books and resources that I'm obsessed with that have really helped me in my journey of business, but also things on a larger scale, like some of which have been 6 months of private coaching type of giveaways. So all of this to be said, massive, massive amount of resources being given inside, and also trainings and resources, tools of frameworks and downloads and worksheets and masterclasses that are going to be things that will really help to take you and your business to the next level. Now, it's also not just about me. I have an incredible network and a community of other entrepreneurs who also want to give back to you if you've loved their interviews and their discussions on the Ambitious Podcast. So we have guests that are also providing resources in the community that will only be available inside the Ambitious Network. But there's also the networking aspect. And this is a place for you to not only connect with other women about what's going on in your business, what's currently working or not working in today's current market. It's a place to share wins, but it's also a place to connect with me and get my feedback and support for you and your business. Now, all of that to be said, this is as I said, mastermind meets networking. And I really have created this as a community that I want to be something you've never gotten anywhere else. It's not this low ticket membership that you feel like you're paying for, this graveyard of resources that the person has that they don't know what to do with. And it's also not that Facebook group that you're inside of that you feel like you get tons of notifications, but you don't really want anything that's inside of it. It all feels surface level. We want to give you the ability to have mastermind meets high level networking all in one place. And the Ambitious Network is where you're going to find that. So, how you can get inside. If you want to go to the show notes beneath, you can click a link to join us inside the Ambitious Network. And if you also want to connect with me on Instagram, I'm also happy to chat with you about it. So, if you DM me the word ambitious, we'll be sure to chat a little bit more about the network for you and give you the link to get inside. So, all of that to be said, I don't want to take any more time away from today's episode. So, without further ado, let's get back into the show. The next one that we have is I'm just not ready yet. And so, the question I would ask people is to say, okay, well, if you wanted, for example, to feel ready, what would ready look like? So, if we were to think about I don't feel ready, what would the ecosystem, the situation, what would need to happen in order for you to feel ready? And so the question is, depending on what they describe, what I then follow up with is, would you say that for you, ready is a decision, or would you say that being ready for something is a destination? Okay. So is it a decision to be ready, or would you say a destination, meaning I have to be at a certain place before I'm quote unquote ready? And so sometimes, depending on the level of what I know about that person, I will, look to say, for example, like if you're a mom or if you're somebody, for example, who's gotten married or if you're someone who's bought a home, is there anything ever in your life that you've done that you made a decision to be ready, even though maybe the destination or the situation in front of you told you you weren't? And what I help people to see is that every single day we do things that we're not ready for. For example, I see somebody does ice baths. I'm like, do you ever feel ready to get in the ice bath? No. I'm somebody who loves a good ice bath. And every time I think, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And that's because you're never ready. You psych yourself into getting ready. You don't wait till you wake up and want to do an ice bath. Because I will be very honest with you, I would never do an ice bath for the rest of my life if I had to wait to be ready. I'm not ready, but I get myself ready. And so the question is, would you say, or, what if we could look at ready as more of a decision than a destination? And that's something that I ask people. And I want to understand, what would ready look like? And if someone says, well, I need this, this, and this, and this all handled before I'm quote unquote ready, I would say, okay. And just to kind of, again, play devil's advocate, what would it look like if you took action without that being the case? What would that mean? And so what it helps me to understand is, what is the fear they have? Is it a matter of certain logistics? Is there a matter of something that they're seeing or believing to be true, that, oh, if I move at this time before I'm quote unquote ready, here's what's going to happen? I want to know, if they are to think that they take action before they're quote unquote ready, what do they see that to mean? What do they believe is going to happen? What do they think is down the line for them? That's something that helps me, again, to better understand how to support them. The other thing that we see as an objection is, I need to be able to do blank before I invest. So a big one we see is, I just really want to make a little bit more money, or I really want to, be able to, just generate a little bit more income before I invest in XYZ, or I want to save a little bit more money before I invest. And so what I tell people is, again, validate the feeling. I totally can appreciate the idea of feeling like there's a certain, place that you want to get to before moving, and the feeling of how much maybe like safety or, I guess security that might provide to you. But I'm curious, do you feel, or maybe, what would it look like if the very thing that helped you to generate more income was actually getting the support in the area that you've thus far been putting off? So if someone says to me that they're not getting any leads or sales right now, and they're like, I just want to make a little bit more money before coming into business coaching, my whole question is, if right now we're not generating any leads or generating any sales, the curiosity would be, is this really the chicken or the egg? That's really the conversation we're having, which is, there's two options. You can take the leap to learn how to generate the leads and sales, or you can wait and potentially end up with still consistently no leads and sales. And if so, what would that look like? And is it possible that by doing this, it would actually help to teach you or understand or master or generate the sales or the inquiries that you're looking for? And so what I do is I help people to understand that this is also not just always an expense. A lot of us believe that when we ask someone to invest, we're taking from them, right? Like, we're asking someone to spend money, we're asking them to, give to us and give away to us. And in an extent, yes, that's true. They are paying us. But the other thing that I also believe to be true in my own journey, not just other people's as well, is that investing is not an expense, it's a catalyst. I would not be where I am today if I had looked at everything that I ever have done as an expense. Could I cut expenses and have less team? Yeah. Could I cut expenses and not have a coach? Yeah. Could I cut expenses and not have done the photo shoot, the website, the brand, any of that? Sure. But it's not an expense, it's an investment. And those things that I invested into, similar to what we noted earlier of the stock market, they are the difference and have been the catalyst for our growth. So, really, what I help people to understand is that many people, like I mean, most people, don't have a rainy day fund for the things that are, for example, in their business, the bank account for hiring a business coach. No one has a bank account that's sitting around being like the business coach bank account that I've had allocated for 7 years for when the time comes. And I share this with people as a business coach. And you can also, by the way, ChatGPT, you could do this for your own business. I pull stats for people. And I said, listen, did you know that 77% of small businesses use their personal savings or personal loans to get their business started? 77%. So this idea that like I have to make money and I have to have a certain amount of savings or a certain amount of money in order to be able to generate or start the business, I can appreciate that feeling. And if that's what feels like the right next step for you, then by all means. I'm not the one to tell you that this is the thing you have to do. What I'm doing instead is I'm creating an invitation to say, is there a different way for us to think about it? And the reason I use the stat is because I find that the stat helps people to feel less alone. I'm not saying, oh, well, I borrowed money to start my business of $20,000, so you should do the same. I'm not the person to say, just because I did it, you should. But what I'm saying instead is, listen, I am also part of a larger stat. There are 70% of entrepreneurs are just like myself and just like what you're considering right now, which is the fact that they're thinking about spending money that they don't have sitting waiting in a bank account. That's okay. Or if you're even potentially the person who does have money sitting in a bank account and you have a personal savings and you think, well, I can't possibly spend my personal savings on my business, 77% of entrepreneurs do that. So that I unravel, what is to say that we can't do that. And again, another client had a client who's in the career coaching space. And she said to me, she joined one of our highest ticket offers. And she said to me, Kate, I want to let you know, just be very transparent. I am spending this from my personal savings. And I said to her very bluntly, I said, I cannot be the person to tell you to do that. That's not like, I'm going to tell you like this is what you should do or this is the right thing to do or any of that. Cause I'm not the person to tell you how to manage, spend, or allocate your personal finances. But here's what I can say. You will not be the first client that I've ever served who's done that. So if it does feel like the right next step for you, I don't want you to feel that by doing so, it necessarily means it's irresponsible, but it is something that you have to feel confident with. So that's totally in your court as to whether you feel that this is something that's the right next step for you. And again, like I validate, but I create agency. I allow them to find themselves within it to really understand, does this feel like it's true or right for me? Okay. The other one that we also know is I'm worried that I won't follow through. And this one's really interesting, especially with coaching, because it's interesting that someone reaches out to, like, let's just say a fitness coach for coaching and accountability, but then they don't invest in the fitness coach because they're scared that they won't do it, even though they're hiring for the aspect of accountability. So, what I do is I say, listen, it's very valid to feel that way, especially if you feel that maybe in the past you've been let down by some of your consistency or some of your momentum before. I can totally appreciate that. The question that I would ask though is what if being supported and seen and held within this transformation is actually the catalyst for you finally being consistent? Like, what if you've been trying to work out and eat healthy and do all the things and you haven't been consistent? Is the reason that's happening is because you're not getting support. What if getting support in the thing that you're doing right now actually literally was the catalyst for you being consistent? So it's kind of like hiring a social media manager and saying, well, I'm worried that I'm not going to consistently produce content. Well, what if actually having somebody whose main job it is to support you in generating ideas, creating and, developing the content, writing the copy, etc., would that be something that actually by having that support allows you and enables you and helps you to be consistent? So a lot of the time we have this fear of when we hear this idea of I'm worried I'm not going to do it. They're worried they're not going to do it oftentimes based off of reference of them doing it on their own. So what I try to do in this objection is I try to help people to understand that the reason for it working is going to be because you're not doing it alone anymore. You're not doing it on your own. You're not trying to DIY. You're not trying to just bootstrap it on your own. You're actually getting support and seen and helped within this transformation. And by having that, that in itself oftentimes is the catalyst for you finally being consistent. There's a reason that when someone has a coach or a fitness coach, let's just say, or a mindset coach, that they're able to do things that they don't do on their own. And that is because they are seen, they are held accountable, they are supported within it. And so I often give people the question, again, you'll see here, it's not statements, it's questions. What if being supported in the very thing you're looking to do is finally the unlock that allows you to be consistent? And I allow them to share with me and to process that with me. The other objection that we hear is, what if this doesn't work for me? I'm worried I'm not going to see results. The other way that this can also sometimes present is, can you guarantee results? Which is always a fun question to answer. So I tell people, listen, I cannot guarantee results. While I appreciate the desire to have that, because everyone, all of us would love to have a investment with no risk, myself included. So while I can appreciate the desire to have a guarantee or a certainty that something is going to work for you, I will be the first to tell you I can't guarantee you the results. And I will also tell you, if any other coach or any other agency can guarantee you results without fail, it would be my advisement to run in the opposite direction. And that is because, especially within coaching for myself, I know that I have incredible results that we've generated. And I know that we've had clients who've hit seven figures in a couple calls together. I've had people 5x their business in 6 months. I've got tons of social proof and testimonials all on my website that you can binge. That is not necessarily up for debate as to whether I can get results. Because obviously you're here because you know that I can get results. The difference is you're asking, can I guarantee them? And I can't guarantee them because I have no idea in this current moment how you're going to show up within this container, how you're going to actually move inside my world. So here's what I can guarantee you. I can guarantee you that if you lean into this program, if you lean into the support, if you are on the calls, if you're consuming the modules, if you're reaching out and you're at any point, if you are stuck, you're not trying to DIY, but you're like, hey, Kate, I'm ringing the bell. I need some help with XYZ. If you lean in, what I can guarantee you is that you will have access to the same information, the same support, the same awarenesses and the insight that all those clients that you read through on my website also had. So, can I guarantee, like person A, that you're going to be able to hit seven figures in 3 calls? No. But what I also know is that you will have access to all the things that all of the top success stories that you just read also had access to. So, if you want to have the ability or the opportunity to tap into a portion or potentially all of the same results that you just read on there, it is going to be on the other side of this investment. So that I can guarantee that I will support you, that you have the same information that they had, that you have the same community, the same resources, the same person in your corner, the same accountability. But I can't guarantee results because I also explain to people, and this is also whether you're a coach or an agency, this is a 50-50 relationship. I actually explain to people typically that, it's 50-50, but even better, it's a 51-49. And they say, well, why? And I'm like, because I can't have a perfect 50-50 relationship with you because I have to be the 49%. And that's because I can't want your business to work more than you want your own business to work. I'm not your business partner. You still have to have 51% in this investment of your energy and your time and all of that in this because I cannot want your business to succeed and to work and to pour more into your business than you pour into your own business. So like I'm in this with you and I'm locking arms with you and I'm ready to go, but I can only confidently give my understanding of my 49%. But if, like those clients you ran through and that you read through, you show up in the way they do, like A, B, C, and D in the following ways, in your 51%, I am confident that we will get you great results inside of this program. Now, I can't say I'm going to help you to hit 7 figures specifically in this time. I can't say I'm going to help you to make, $10,000 cash by tomorrow. And again, it's number one, not legal, but two, it's not ethical to do that because I don't have certainty that that's going to happen. But I have certainty in what I bring to the container. I have certainty to what I provide to that client. I have certainty to what I know is possible inside of our world. That I am certain of. And so if you are willing to take the leap on me, I can guarantee you that I will support you in any and every single way inside of my world. That I can guarantee you. And again, the other things that I mentioned of the resources, the supports, the coaching, etc. So what I use of this idea of like, what if it doesn't work for me? Or, I want this guarantee of it will work. The guarantee is because, again, when we really get down to it, there is a fear here. There's a fear that I don't want to have any skin in the game. And I also, depending on the entrepreneur I'm talking to, will have to have a very blunt conversation with being an entrepreneur means you don't get to blame somebody else. So like I will have 49% ownership in this transaction together, this relationship, 100%. But that can't be that, if you don't show up to calls, if you don't consume the modules, if you don't reach out, that it's 100% our program's fault. That means that in this relationship, you will take 51% ownership and I will take 49% ownership. Is that something that you feel comfortable to move forward with? Right? So again, these are really a matter of asking questions and unpacking together. The other one that people ask is, I'm just wondering if I should try it a little bit longer on my own. So maybe, again, not even in business, but it could be in fitness. It could be in mindset. Like maybe it's just more a matter of like a little bit more journaling. Maybe it's a matter of taking the resources, also very common that you'll hear, taking the resources that I've learned somewhere else. And like, I really feel like I just want to like sit with them longer and integrate them. And what I often tell people is there's a couple different ways to look at this. Again, validate. But I ask people, I could do it on my own. And I say, yes, obviously 1,000% you could do it on your own. I will be the first person to tell you, you do not need a business coach in order to be successful. I fully believe you could do it on your own. The question I would say is, if you are going to invest into X, why would you do that? Well, if you versus doing it on your own, why would you invest? If you had to hypothetically say, this is why I'd invest, for example, into an agency versus doing it on my own. Why would you invest into a social media manager versus doing it on your own? What would be the incentive for you doing that? Right? And oftentimes, having clarity of strategy, having the ability to get your time back, right? Like there's a reason that you're doing it. So the question then to me becomes, just because you could do it on your own, do you think you should? Because I am somebody, for example, who says, okay, let's just say again, social media manager, we're using that as a lot of examples today. If I'm a social media manager and someone says, well, yeah, I'm just wondering if I should just like post on my own maybe and like try a little bit longer on TikTok and Instagram, I would say, yeah, like you 100% can post your own social. Like, there's no question that you have access to Instagram and you can do all that on your own. But if you're going to invest into a social media manager, why would you do that? And often, it's because they will, for example, want to have someone to manage it for them and to help them be consistent and all of that. So the question is, do you feel like maybe you've been consistent on your own? Well, yeah, sometimes maybe not as much. Okay, great. So just because you potentially could be consistent, do you feel that you should own the entire responsibility of social, for example, at this stage of your business? Is that something because you could do it that you should do? I could do my own design, for example, of my business materials, but it's not something that I should be doing anymore because it's not as leverageable for me to be in that bucket. My, vision of the business, et cetera, is needed in other buckets outside of design. So like I could do design. I'm sure if I wanted to, I could learn how to edit my podcast. I could learn to do, for example, ClickUp build outs or whatever it might be. There's many things I could learn, but it doesn't necessarily mean I should, because I can hire somebody, as I have. I have an incredible team. Shout out Dear Kelsey and also AHA Agency, who help me with this podcast. I have Dear Kelsey Agency, who helps me with our back end of our operations. She's been our operations lead for years and years now. I could learn ClickUp, but I shouldn't because Kelsey's 10 times better than me. So it's really understanding, where are you leverageable? Where are you intentional within what you do within your business? And so that would be the way that I explain that. The other thing, which is the last one, this is the classic one, is I have a lot going on right now. So I will tell you a story about this. I had a client who came to me eventually became a client. So you'll see that these are very effective. They help to make people feel seen and supported in taking the next step in moving forward. I had this client who came to me and she said, Kate, I am pregnant. I am moving. I am feeling beyond overwhelmed. And I really just feel like this might not be the right time. And I feel like I've got a lot going on. It just feels like right now in my life, this is not necessarily the right time to do it. So I'm wondering if I should maybe hold off till, for example, things slow down in life, till we're not moving. And even for myself, coaching a lot of women, people will say, maybe I should wait till after the baby. Like, what do you think about that? And so what I explain to them is, okay, curious. And again, I say like, just play with me here. Do you feel like you will still be building your business during this time? So like even if you are, for example, pregnant, if you are somebody who, for example, who's moving homes, do you feel like you're still going to work on your business during this time? Do you still want to grow it? Are you still going to be working on it? Yes. Okay. Well, the question is, how many hours do you feel like you probably during the season will be working on it? Let's just say 5 hours a day. Okay. So if you have, say, anywhere between 4 to 5 hours a day, the question becomes, would you not rather know what to do with those 4 to 5 hours to scale your business, to support your family, to support the next phase, to support maybe mat leave, to prep your business for that versus working on what you're working on right now or feeling the same stage right now, say a year from now? The other question that I ask people is, do you yourself feel that your business is something that you only want to grow in slow seasons? Do you feel that your business is only going to scale when life is slow and calm? And what I give people is I said, listen, this is my reframe. My belief is that I actually think the best time to be mentored, the best time to be coached is during the times where you have been in the complete tornado of life. And I'll tell you why. Because if you can learn how to manage your time, how to manage your team, how to still market, how to still sell, how to still scale during the craziest of times inside your business, when the baby is here and you get back into routine again, months down the line, when the house move is done, when the renovations you're doing are finished, you are going to navigate scaling your business with your eyes closed. And that is because you have now been trained in the toughest season. So when the easy season comes, you will do it as a breeze. You'll be working half the time because you become so dialed during the craziest season. So I coach people all the time to say, listen, the busiest season of your life, that's the moment. That's the moment you lean in because it helps you to know that you're not just an entrepreneur who has skills during the easy season. You're not just the entrepreneur who's able to win when everything is dialed, when everything is easy around you. When the ecosystem is perfect, that's when I win. You are the entrepreneur who's able to win regardless of the external conditions. That is a skill that can only be developed in times where things are difficult. It's not something you think through. It's not something you conceptualize. It's not something that's hypothetical. It's something that you have to be in the tornado to learn how to navigate and dance with it while running a business. So this is actually more than ever the moment to move. And so that's a reframe that I give to people. And this client who came to me, I told her this exact same thing. And same thing, she joined us for 6 months of coaching inside of our mastermind. And after that, she had her baby and she moved her home and she did amazing. She did amazing. And I have many women. I have 3 women in our program right now who are pregnant and expecting in the coming months. And they have been busting their butt behind the scenes to grow the business, scale the business, dial in systems and marketing and sales and all of that because they recognize this. While everything in their mind and body might have said, like, this is a time of rest and chill and relax, they reframed and said, I want to chill and relax when the baby's here. I want to feel like I'm not pushing and constantly on and stressed when that time comes. So by reframing this, it helped these women to see that this is not the wrong time. This is actually the perfect time. And many of them have soared as a result of leaning in. So the reason I wanted to share this today, and obviously I gave a lot of examples from my business because I wanted to make it really easy and contextual for you to see what would be maybe ways that I would explain that. Obviously, this can be translated to every single one of your business, someone you know's business. If you want to send this to them and say, hey, send this to anyone who's sending you objections. The other thing I also want to invite you to is that today and what we discussed can also be something you talk about, not just one-to-one with people, but I also want to invite you to put this into your marketing. These are common objections that people who are consuming you and who are watching you and consuming your marketing are having day in, day out. This is something that people are already in your world experiencing. So you don't necessarily have to wait for someone to come into your sales process to have this conversation with them. This can be something you do also in advance to help somebody to have those aha moments before they get into the sales process. That's even better if you can. But again, even if they happen in the sales process, that's fine. As we talked about at the beginning, it really is very normal. It's very common for that to be the case. So again, we talk about this because I wanted to give you an understanding of how to reframe. I wanted to give you an understanding of what objections you're probably going to be hearing and what are very normal. There's also a ton of other ones we could cover that are variations of these, but these are kind of the core root or the base of where a lot of these come from. And with this, recognize it's not about you. Objections are not about you. They're not about your offer. They're not about this person objecting working with me. They're not about this person objecting my price. Objections are not personal. They're not about you. They're about that person's perception of what they believe to be true in that moment. And the reason I say in that moment is because that has the ability to change. My first investment I made was $20,000 into a mastermind. And I remember I said, I can't afford this. This is a big investment for me and I can't afford it. And I remember that coach at the time, he said to me, Kate, these moments are the difference of where entrepreneurs are made. I'm not going to minimize to you that this is a small investment. I know this is a big investment. This is the investment of the equivalent of some cars, right? I get it. But I also want to tell you that if you are someone who works on 9 to 5 right now and I'm scared to invest, I feel like I don't have the money, I have to wait till I save up. This moment of figuring out and finding a way is the difference of where entrepreneurs are made. It's when you have your back against the wall and there's so many reasons to say that you can't do it or that you don't have the funds or it's not the right time or I'm just going to wait or maybe next round and all of these things. This is the moment where entrepreneurs are created. If he had not objection handled me, I wouldn't even be here talking to you. I am a diehard advocate for overcoming objections. And that is because they are helping people to push past limiting beliefs when they're done respectfully and when they're done properly. And the difference of how to know you're doing it properly is remove yourself from the equation. Think of that person's best interest, truly, not about your offer, meaning if they didn't even invest with you, just in general. If this was your sister or your friend, what would you recommend? Think of that person as if they are one of your best friends or family members. What would you advise them? What would you recommend to them to do? That is the invitation today on how you can support people around objections. Because by doing that, you're helping people to unlock the next stage they need for their growth. I am so incredibly grateful for that person who helped me to overcome that day. Almost every investment that I've made to date, I've had an objection around. And every single person has sat with me in it and supported me effectively to get to the next stage. It's the reason I am where I am today. So you yourself could be a catalyst for the person who's investing with you, the person who says that they have resistance. By you dropping the objection because you're feeling uncomfortable about what objections mean or challenging them or whatever it might be, you're actually potentially getting in the way of that person's breakthrough by not creating an invitation for a conversation. We're not talking pressure. We're not talking about taking away agency or independence. We're talking about being there and sitting in it with them to see how you can support. And if it means they don't invest, okay, fine. But it also might mean that you are the difference of what completely changes in their mindset, their health, their social, their business, their whatever it is that your business is. So know that your objections could be the difference of them overcoming the fears that are keeping them from the life, the business, the things that they truly want within their life. So all of this to say, I hope today was helpful. As always, if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, shares, anything that you want to kind of share with me or downloads even, shoot them my way. I cannot tell you enough how much it means to me to get DMs from you of takeaways that you've had of the episodes, awarenesses, just aha moments, all of it. It means the world to me. And I can't tell you how much it fills my bucket for you to reach out. So I just want to also say thank you guys so much for doing that during these episodes and after these episodes. I love to connect with you and reach out with you. And so if you have any questions, slide into my DMs. You know where to find me. I hope today was helpful for you. And as always, stay ambitious, and we'll see you on the next episode.